All right, people. So today we're going to be talking about how to use silence as a defensive weapon. And then tomorrow we're going to talk about how to use silence, or next week, as an offensive weapon. All right. If you guys ever want to apply these strategies with more in-depthness, you guys could work with me one-on-one by going to mindfulattraction.org or the description down below. Don't forget, we're having a seminar in London about nonverbal communication. Description down below to purchase tickets. And we're having a meditation course called Emotional Mastery. It's about how to use mindfulness on your daily life, how to use it to improve your skills, how to use it to improve your dating life, your social life, and how to use it to become happier. It's a 6 to 8 week course that I'm really excited about, and that should be released by the end of the month, by the beginning of June. Okay, so let's begin this. Look, generally speaking, for example, if you've been accused of something negative in the media, and there's a lot of people talking bad about you, generally being quiet and letting people forget about you and forget about the anger usually works to build up to help you rebuild up your reputation, right? So it's kind of like if you mess up, sometimes distance, sometimes not talking helps people forget the bad that you've done and build and rebuild your reputation. And you see a lot of brands doing that. And you see a lot of celebrities, like for example, Louis C.K. disappeared for a few years. And then he came back with his specials, right? If you keep talking, Trump did that actually. When he left, they kicked him out of social media. And you could tell that he wasn't talking that much. He wasn't talking. And then all of a sudden he came back, right? Silence, removing yourself from the situation, allows you to regain respect, regain the illusion of power, right? And it naturally leads to people listening with more fervent what you're about to say. Michael Jackson was a big one, right? He rarely did interviews. And when he does do interviews, people listen. Michael Jordan does that. He rarely does interviews or rarely appears anywhere. But when he does talk, people listen. Why? Because he remains silent more often than not, right? And also silence is used to create mystery, but I think that's the offensive aspect of it. Silence has so many uses. Silence is not just something that you have when there's no words, right? Silence is also a void that can be used to defend yourself and on the offensive, right? So today we're going to talk about how to use it on the defensive, because the most powerful people use silence as a defensive tool, right? The most powerful people know when to speak and when not to speak, but most importantly is not knowing when to speak. And the most important thing is knowing when not to speak. That is more important, because you could do more damage by talking than by not talking. All right. Even like, again, I always love to watch interrogation videos. You know, cops interrogating criminals or even people who are innocent. And the most powerful thing that the defendants have is silence, pleading the fifth. That is the one thing that cops cannot defend against, is silence. Because a lot of the times what they do is that they use your words to incriminate you, and you'd be surprised how good they are, right? But if you just stay silent, you have the power. So let's find out when you should stay silent in life. One, be silent in the heat of anger, as speaking in anger can lead to saying hurtful things that we might regret later, right? This, I forgot where I got this at. So the person who wrote this, my apologies, I haven't found the source of it, because I remember writing this down but rephrasing it, but I forgot where I got it from. And I also added some of my end. So learn to be silent when you're in the heat of anger, right? Especially when you're feeling very emotional. That's why you got to learn how to soothe yourself, self-soothe yourself through natural means, not through drugs, not through alcohol, but through going to sleep, taking a nap, going on a walk, applying mindfulness, meditating, right? You learn to self-soothe, and you can pretty much control your tongue. Because a lot of times we just talk to relax. We just talk to release attention. Like, that's why a lot of people who are criminals, I'm reading the book Crime and Punishment by Fyodor Dostoevsky. And the main guy kills someone, right? And he ends up confessing, right? Now, hopefully nobody reads it, but he ends up confessing to someone simply because of the guilt, right? Talking is a way to self-soothe, and if you don't know how to self-soothe naturally, you'll end up using your mouth. Be silent when you don't have all the facts, as forming opinions without proper information could lead to misunderstanding and conflict. And also, it also can lead to you developing a false narrative about life, a false perception about people, right? So when you see someone and you don't like them initially, observe your internal dialogue and take a step back and be silent. Give him a shot, right? Don't just automatically assume that something is true and then talk about it. Always verify what you learn, and always verify it through one, looking at different resources, and then when it comes to social interactions, two, patterns and time and other people's perception of that individual. Be silent if your words will offend a weaker person, as we must be mindful of how our words may impact others, especially those who may be vulnerable, right? I remember one time there was this one girl when I was in Italy. She asked me, she looked 29. She asked me in front of people, by the way, what the fuck? I mean, that was like a complete setup. I bet there was like cameras watching. They were like, okay, let's see what he's going to say. She was like, before that, I was watching a video from the Breakfast Club, and Charlemagne was talking about how they had wedding vows from another groom. And the groom, and usually they ask, hey, who would you have sex with out of my best friends? Who would you have sex with? And they said, you're not supposed to answer. And the guy said, your best friend. and it was like silence. And they're like, what the fuck? You said my best friend. Right. Anyway, so she said, how do I look? And I was like, oh shit. In my mind, I'm like, okay, I could confidently say you look 29. Confidently. But in that moment, I was actually reading about silence and learning how to shut the fuck up. That's when I said, I'd rather not answer. And the reason why I didn't answer is because I couldn't say 20, because clearly she didn't look 20. What the fuck? It's like saying Hillary Clinton looks 20. You wouldn't even, you'll laugh. You'll laugh in her face. So she was like, you're not gonna answer? I was like, nah, I just don't like answering those types of questions. And she was like, well, I'm 20. And I'm like, oh my God. I'm like, I saved myself from such an embarrassment from me and her. So don't offend weaker people. Learn to speak in a way that either pleases, right? Or because you have to confront a difficult situation, but there's no need to inadvertently offend people. And this is something that I've learned, right? And unfortunately, the funny thing is that when you offend people, you don't notice it. And the reason why is because you're so self-absorbed with your own belief systems and what you think is right and what you think is offensive, that sometimes we're not aware when we offend people. Because some people are just more sensitive. And when you're less sensitive than most people, you will offend it without even trying. Be silent when it's time to listen, as sometimes our role is simply to listen and understand the perspective of others rather than always needing to share our own. And I learned this when I worked in the field of therapy as a caseworker. And even when interacting with people, I'll naturally feel an urge, especially because of my job, to speak. What I've learned over the years is to shut the fuck up. Shut the hell up. Shut up, Alexis. Listen. Stop interrupting. Let them finish what they're saying. Wait 1 second and then speak. That is something that I also actively practice because it is not easy. It's not easy. Sometimes I do have things that are interesting to say, but I learned to shut up and be quiet, right? And this usually happens because you're self-absorbed. You're too in love with your own ideas and your own thoughts that you're not interested in the alien or an alien mind of other people. We are so disinterested in people. And we're so self-absorbed that we don't find other people interesting. We don't find other points of views intriguing. And we lost that natural desire to listen. And you should use silence to understand people. Your silence should be used to let people's words, let people's reality inundate us, right? And for a moment, mute our minds and listen. And if you don't know how to meditate, people, check out my upcoming course, Emotional Mastery, ladies and gentlemen. And we're going to go to a quick commercial break. All right, ladies and gentlemen, if you guys haven't purchased any of my courses, we have a special bundle deal for everyone. so that you can purchase all of my courses, meaning you could purchase the psychological game of attraction, natural chemistry, and nice girl, along with all of the bonuses. Originally, if you purchase everything without the bundle, it'll be around $500 to be honest with you. But right now, if you guys purchase it with the bundle, you guys will be able to get all of these courses: psychological game of attraction, which is for women who are single; natural chemistry, which is for women who are in a relationship; nice girl, which is a course on assertiveness, along with all of the bonuses: social mastery, practical mastery in terms of how to master anything, social mastery in terms of how to master your social skills, and the laws of human nature, wherein it's part of the Robert Greene book club I used to have. All of these, naturally, like I said, it's $500. Now you get it at $394. But if you guys want to purchase a more affordable bundle, you guys can purchase the bundle without the bonuses, and that will be at $224. Everyone who's purchased my course have been satisfied with it, and if they didn't like it, I always give their money back. I have never rejected a refund. All right, so purchase it right now. Click on the description down below where it says purchase the bundle, and I see you guys inside. So yeah, that's one thing, right? The next one is, and this is important: be silent when you're tempted to make light of holy things, as showing disrespect towards things that they hold sacred can be harmful and offensive. And this applies, for example, I live in Brooklyn, and so you have a lot of people with woke ideologies, and I don't mind that, right? But I'm less sensitive to those things. But when I meet someone who has intense ideologies, either they could be Christian, Islam, part of the LGBTQ community, Mormonism, all those types of groups, I abide to their rules. I make sure I don't try to offend them. If it's a Christian, I don't curse around them. If they're LGBTQ, you know, what's funny is that they hate. I have friends who are trans or gay, bi. I'll be honest with you, I don't. The bisexual girls, I'm like, bitch, you're bisexual. You're not part of this community. You're not an oppressed group. You're bisexual. The fuck? That is so normal. How the hell are you? How are you in this protest, white girl? You're just bisexual. Why are you here? You're not oppressed. Like, it's so silly. I'm like, well, listen, the white girl, you are not part of that group either. How are you part of that group, man? Anyways, man. But in that group, man, you'll see me, man. I make sure I know the things that are offensive, and I don't say them, right? I don't just see things from my own point of views. I'm also sensitive to other people's sensitivities. And if you don't do that, you're going to end up losing a lot of friends. You're going to end up hurting a lot of people. For example, right? Holiness is not just like religious. It could be you work at a job and they value people who work overtime. And then let's just say you're talking to people and you say, oh, I don't work overtime. Fuck working overtime, right? And then what'll happen is that the people around you will realize you're going against a very important part of the culture, and they'll secretly start talking about you, secretly not invite you to events because you're going against their most important value as a group. So holiness is really more so about what do people value the most, and don't offend that value. For example, I go to art school, and a lot of people like super classical art, right? And I love super classical art, but I also like Van Gogh. I also like Claude Monet, and they don't like it, right? And so it's kind of like I don't talk about it. I don't bring them up as one of the best artists of all time. Why? Because they're really into the style that they like, right? And so what I do then is I go with it. I never bring up Monet. I never bring up Van Gogh. I just go with them because I don't mind, and I know to them it matters more. So it's kind of like I just go with it, right? And so you got to learn to step out of your own mind and just do things for other people and not just for yourself. You get what I'm saying? That's how silence works. Silence is not just about like being present, but also about being quiet about your belief system, because some people are less sensitive. They have more sensitivities and it offends them more. And it's kind of like, yeah, you could say, yeah, why do we have to walk on eggshell? You don't have to, right? But if you want to make friends with some people, you have to do that. You have to respect their belief systems. You have to not offend the things that they value. You have to not say fuck Jesus, right? You can't, you know what I'm saying? Like, oh, you gotta, that's what I think and that's my opinion. It's kind of like, look, man, I know you're being yourself, but at the same time, you're deeply offending me. You can't keep it real all the time, right? Pretty much. Be silent when you're tempted to joke about sin, as humor that might make light of serious issues can be insensitive and disrespectful, right? And this is one that I learned. It's not joking around. Stop joking around all the time. Sometimes not joking around is what's important. But so you have people who act like goofball, complete clowns who always has to joke about things, right? So it's kind of like, don't be someone who tries to joke around about everything. Learn to develop a serious demeanor and let your humor come through by mistake. Be silent if you will be ashamed of your words later, as we should always strive to speak in a way that we stand behind and be proud of in the future. And this applies to me, right? I made some videos on this channel, man, that I'm like, oh man, I sound evil as fuck, man. Some of the things I've said on this channel, I'm not too proud of, and that's a big one right there. And this applies to social media, right? Where a lot of people said a lot of things in the past, and don't get me wrong, you can't be judged by the past, but people who don't like you will. That's the point, right? And they'll dig up the past and use it against you. Be silent if your words would convey the wrong impression, as our words can have a significant impact on how others perceive us and our intentions. For example, I was so stupid younger, man. When I was younger, I love Jewish people. I've dated a lot of Jewish girls. It sounds like I'm about to say something racist, right? It's kind of like, look, man. Look, first of all, I love black people, okay? Like, some shit's gonna go down. But, because I was a Christian, right? Christians love Jewish people. They're the chosen ones. So we revere them, right? But I like to watch Borat, right? And I know that he's Jewish. And so I like the jokes he makes about Jewish people because I find them funny. It's like joking about Dominicans, right? It's kind of like, it's funny, right? Like, because I love the Jewish people. So because I feel like I have permission to laugh. But one time I went to a party. See, people, man, sometimes, you think it's funny, but it's not funny to some people, right? I talk a lot. I talked a lot when I was younger. This is many years ago. I talked a lot. I talked way too much, man. That was my biggest problem. And when I met a girl, she was Jewish. She was like, "Yeah, I'm Jewish." I was like, "Oh, you're a Jew? You're a Jew?" Because Borat does like Jewish with the horns, because his character is of an afraid, like, anti-Semitic person. And I was like, "Oh, nice. Are you a Jew?" She was like, "What do you mean?" She was like, "A Jew, like like Borat." She was like. And then she just was really cold, and like I was a little tipsy, right? But I took too much risk. I didn't know her. I was saying something that was very risky, provocatively, kind of racist, provocatively. But I was clearly joking around. And then the same day, that same day, and now these people were friends of my friends, right? So they kind of know me. They know me, right? And we were all toasting, and they were all black people, man. There were black people, 2 Puerto Ricans, and 3 white people, right? There were 4 black people, 2 Puerto Ricans, and 3 white people. And they know I'm Dominican. They know we're Africans at the end of the day, right? And then they were like, "So what should we toast to?" And I was like, "I know what to toast to. White power!" Oh my God. And the black guy was like, what the fuck did you say? And I'm like, clearly I'm like, motherfucker, clearly I'm kidding around. Like, what the hell? She's like, you can't be kidding around about something like that. And then it became the whole white power problem, right? And in my mind, I thought to myself, this is ridiculous. What person in their right mind would think that I really mean white motherfucking power? Clearly I'm joking, nigga. Holy fuck. But in my, you see, so why risk it? Right? You get what I'm saying? It's kind of like, yeah, you're right. Yeah, it's like, clearly, like, but it's like, that's too much of a risk. Don't say that. Just shut up. Don't say nothing, right? So that's one thing. Just because it doesn't offend you doesn't mean it's not going to offend some people. Be silent if the issue is none of your business, as it is important to respect people's privacy. In other words, stop gossiping. Be silent when you tempted to tell an outright lie, as honesty is an important value that we should always uphold. Now, outright lie is different than saying, I don't know what I want right now, or saying, hey, how do I look? Do I look 20? Do I look 29 or 20? You say you look 20. You lie about that shit. Some things you don't lie about. Be silent if your words will damage somebody else's reputation, as we should always be mindful of how words affect others. Be silent if your words will damage a friendship, as our relationship with others are impacted. Be silent when you are feeling critical, as negative thoughts and attitudes can sometimes lead to hurtful words and actions, right? So that's a big one. Notice when you're being critical towards yourself and others, and learn to remove emotion from it, so that you know which criticisms come from a good place versus which ones come from a bad place. Be silent if your words will damage others. Be silent if your words will damage a friendship. Be silent if you feel critical. Be silent if you can't say it without screaming. This is a big one for me, people, as raising your voice can be a sign of losing control. This is a big one for me, right? Learning to speak in a low tone. And I've learned this over the years. Learning to speak not too high, not too fast, but more in a relaxed way. Be silent if your words will be a poor reflection of your friends and family, as our actions and words can reflect on those around us. It's like hood people, right? Like you see a lot of older folks from the hood, like, look, man, you guys stop saying the N-word. You're making us look bad. Or where a Hispanic guy, or Dominican guy, or black person, or Puerto Rican, or doesn't matter, where they consciously choose to speak in a sophisticated white, or not, see, I don't want to say sophisticated white way, you know what I'm saying? Because also white people in the South talk like this. I'm talking about in the affluent accent, in the professional accent, right? Because this accents that you speak like this is not just white people. I need to let people know that. Because Southern, have you seen hood white people? Hey, man, hey, I talk like this, man. Hey, like, hey, man, from South, you know? And then you have the hey, man, I don't like talking to you like this, right? But then you have the rich, sophisticated accent. It's not about how rich, it's not about how the color, but more about your social status, right? So it's kind of like you got to learn to develop that type of talk. To learn to talk in a sophisticated way, like you come from a sophisticated house, people who have not just sophistication, but also honor, who don't talk code, who don't talk vulgar, who talk with respect, like a military person. Sir, ma'am, you got to represent your people. And this actually does make a lot of sense. And this is more applicable in politics, where certain politicians have to behave the right way to represent their other politicians, but also is more important in community, like in community-based countries, like in poorer countries, right, where they care more about the family name than anything else. Be silent if you may have to eat your words later, as speaking without forethought can lead to regrets and having to apologize later on. This is just things that it's kind of crazy reading this, because I've made these mistakes so many times, you know. Speaking before thinking. Be silent if you have already said more than one time. Said it more than one time, as repetition can sometimes come across as nagging and annoying to others. Be silent when you are tempted to flatter a wicked person. Be silent when you are supposed to be working instead, as focusing on our responsibilities and tasks is important for personal and professional worth, right? And you see this a lot in the workplace. When you're supposed to be working, a lot of people instead prefer talking, right? And this is how to use silence as a defensive weapon. And also, let me show you guys another way to use silence.